It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Friday, April 5th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is really concerned about how the Flyers are going to handle this home stretch without their captain.
Will they overthink it?
Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. We are at Locked On Flyers on Twitter and Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky as well. You can find us for free over on YouTube or on the SiriusXM app or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We do want to get into this Flyers no Couturier situation, the power play. Just have to touch on this Rangers versus Devils line brawl from the other night because, man, like it has felt like we haven't seen anything like that in a while.
Yeah, I would say more than a decade. It was interesting. Clearly, it was predetermined. Uh, Probably more on the Devil's side because they had an axe to grind with the Rangers. Fine, because it's really not Travis Green's style, you know. Laviolette, sure,
Right.
he's from an older era,
Yeah.
yeah. Uh, I mean, it was the first one went kind of quick. They all went kind of quick until it came down to Rempe and I forget what's his name, the other McDermott, right? So,
Hmm.
okay, fine. I didn't mind watching it. I think it's a little silly at this point. Like, this is how you're going to do it, but it's fine if that makes the players feel better because it's like the frontier of justice. That's fine. I mean, as far as Devils fans, gave them something to watch because they blew the game anyhow, and now their season is
Yep.
definitely
That's
over.
the thing.
So at
I
least
know.
the Devils fans had something to watch.
I know. I know. It just reeks of desperation.
Yeah.
That's what it said to me. But it's still fun. A throwback
Oh
nonetheless.
yeah.
Get switching over to the Flyers, of course. So Sean Couturier was not at practice yesterday again, and it seems like there's not a significant chance that he'll be in the game against the Sabres at least, if not longer. And I think, you know, not having him on the bench is gonna be a real challenge for the
It's a big
Flyers in
deal.
this home stretch, especially on the road for these games. I think that, he is the leader on this team. He can provide a spark regardless of, what people
Right.
may or may not think.
If it goes to
And
shootout, they lose that. He's been really good in a shootout.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, so I do think there's significant implications here.
Yeah, there's no question. I think it's easy to say, "Oh, they'll be much faster." Okay, that's true, but then there's other things that they're not going to be as good at. And when we saw him laid out with the shoulder, yeah, I was skeptical about if he would come back this season. But then we didn't really hear anything other than he missed practice. But now it's like, well, they're saying he's day to day, so now he's going to miss time.
Right, and I think that especially given everything we've talked about for the past couple of days and John Tortorella, and I do think the guys on this team are wanting to rally around Sean
Oh, sure,
Couturier because, they wanna defend him and, there's a reason why everybody respects him, and there's a reason why he was named captain, and so with him not on the bench, it's hard to kinda stick it to the man and
right.
support your guy, right?
It is. It is. It's going to be a missing element. And, they're going to play a team that, even though they're going to have their 13th season without the playoffs, which is unimaginable really in any sport, uh, they still want to finish out strong because they have fans that are kind of like wondering what the heck's going on. And we'll get into it. But so, it's not like Buffalo's not going to try hard here.
Right. Now looking at the potential lines, without Sean Couturier going into these couple of games, from this weekend, our good friend Jordan Hall reported from practice that it looks like, if Sean Couturier could get in, not likely that they would switch some things around. But Joel Farabee was with Cates and Atkinson, and I just don't get that.
I fear, and this is what I was fearing the other day, that one of the unnamed guys from Torts' rant was Farabee. And I think
Could
now
be.
based on his line where he's putting him, because there's no world that you would put Lixell on a line higher than Farabee or even Brink at this point. But in John's
Right.
world, you might.
Right. Well, and I think that, Forrester, Frost, Konechny together, and then Tippett, Lawton, Brink together, that, like, mixes it up a little bit,
Sure.
you know, in terms of maybe trying to get some spark out of
Hmm.
these guys. And, I certainly think it's better to have Scott Lawton in that center position there than Ryan Poehling, just because of, how, like, Lawton can help spark this team, and he does wear an A. Um, and as we've been talking about, Ryan Poehling has his place, but I don't think it's necessarily in the top 6, right?
I mean, again, you're going against Buffalo and you're putting Lawton as a 2C. We know this isn't a great place to have him. It's not. Yes,
Right.
he's fiery and stuff, but he's going to have trouble with big guys on faceoffs. He's just going to. And so, now you got Cates on the fourth line center. All right. But you got two guys here that don't really want to play the position, but are doing it because they're good soldiers. And so that's a little worrisome for me.
Right, and, I do think the correct thing is to sit Delorier and Gurianov. Like, that
Sure.
is
That's easy.
that is that is the easy decision. It's what you do with the rest of the lineup without Coots there. I certainly hope that Ollie Lixel gets a shot here, and gets a decent amount of ice time. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, my fear is he will play. And if he doesn't create any offense within his first like 3, 4 shifts, then he gets the 8 minutes after Delorier's 6 minutes.
Right, which okay, but it does create the problem we've been talking about. When you shorten
Yes.
your bench like that, it overtaxes the rest of the guys. So,
But the
I
coach
think
doesn't care about that.
well, yeah, I mean,
In
it
the
is
heat of a game, he does
clear.
not care. Yeah.
No, and that's what's different from what he said in terms of, is he doing the right thing? Like,
You're right.
it just I think, we could be putting the cart before the horse here in terms of complaining about things that may or may not occur.
Sure. I mean,
But at
that's
the
half
same
of what
time,
analyzing something is, but I'm going off of recent history even with him.
exactly, exactly. It's like what we expect based on what we know to this point. But
Right.
we shall see. Blue line. I think I certainly hope that Adard gets in these games. I still want to see Adard and Jinning and not Stahl out there, but I don't know. Maybe they're throwing Stahl a bone by giving him a game or two to end out the season, and this is just one of them. But I don't know.
Yeah, again, this is the worst case scenario where now you're you've taken Zamula off the power play because of a misplay at practice, and you're not playing Adard or Jennings. Great. I mean, that's your future, or at least one of them will be here. And I'm sure it's Adard. Whether both will, who knows? I mean, again, they could lose Jennings because he just gets tired of all this. He's got options overseas. He doesn't have to sign with the Flyers. And the coach may say, "Hey, no big deal. He wasn't a real big part of it, but he wasn't really given a chance to be a real big part of it either."
Yeah, I think, it is unfortunate for Zamula. I think with Drysdale back, they wanna give him a power play unit because we haven't had a chance to really see him for
But they don't
a
let him do his
significant
thing
amount
on
of
the power play, though. They don't.
sure, but I think that that's why he's in and Zamula's out, is what I'm saying, is that they
Okay, but
haven't
he's
had
in on
enough
their
time.
terms. That's the problem. If you give Jamie Drysdale the top power play, which you should, then he has to really run it. Not the coaches, not anybody else. He has to run it. He has to do what he sees fit, which means he's got to be all over the place, sometimes behind the net. And have we seen that more than like 2 times this whole year?
Well, we haven't seen him enough to know. That's the thing. That's what I was trying to get at, is that we just haven't seen him enough because of the injury to know whether or not he'll take that reign and run with it in that way. But it's unfortunate to me that Zamula is getting the short end of the
Yeah.
stick here as far as power play time, because he has been pretty good on that front, as good as anything can be in the Flyers power play, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, yes, I agree with that, and sure, like Cam York's never going to hurt you on the power play, but Cam York also doesn't get his shots on net.
All right, lots to be seen here in terms of how the Flyers set up their lines in these next two games, this back to back. We're going to talk about the first of those two games against the Sabres coming up. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood is the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for a year from the date of first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker dealer. Are you watching sports on cable TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Next week on the show, we are going to talk about the results of these two games we're about to preview. Plus, we've got Flyers versus Habs, Rangers, and Devils. Tough week ahead. So, the Buffalo Sabres. The last time we saw the Sabres was a home and home in early November. It was a split decision, if we recall, where the road team won both of those games with similar scores, 5-2 in Philly and 5-1 in Buffalo. The Sabres, I think, and the Blue Jackets, which we'll talk about, have some similar themes this season in terms of not living up to expectations this season. Both teams, I think, were expected to take leaps forward and didn't. Although, thank you, Sabres, for beating the Caps on Tuesday, and for beating the Devils the other day too. But I think that you look at them, they're 6th in the Atlantic. Before last night, 5-5 in their last 10. Just what happened here?
Well, first thing is we're going to say what happened. They still believe they're in it. They're not going to say it, but they do because what are they, 5 points out, something like that? So they
Yeah.
believe there's a chance still at the playoffs. So that's important to point out. What happened was they thought Devin Levi was ready to be a full-time starter, and he wasn't. He's a young guy. So then they eventually sent him down to the minors. The positive there was Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen finally had a really good full season. So he's going to probably be the guy in net, and he's been good. So that's going to
Yeah.
be it's a different situation than what the Flyers faced earlier in the year. So that's something you have to look out for. I think the other thing is the trade of Middlestat. That was a big deal. I mean, now
Yeah.
they have Bowen Byram, who, if you look at their blue line, they have a lot of offense that comes out of that blue line now. It may not be from power yet, but it's Byram is a big thing to add.
Right. And that was their big move at the trade
Yes.
deadline. Of course, I mean, the Flyers got Eric Johnson from them.
I mean, they miss him. They
And
liked him there. He was a leader,
yeah,
but yeah, yeah.
yeah. They also sent Kyle Okposo to the Panthers at trade deadline. And I think that was, I don't know, I think that's fine. for them. I don't know that. I mean, I love Kyle Okposo just as a guy, but
Oh, he's a
I
great
think,
guy. They don't really miss.
yeah,
There was no offense to miss.
no, that is true. That is absolutely true. The other kind of big thing out of Buffalo that Jeff Skinner just had his 1,000th game
Yeah,
celebration, which was super cool. They brought back that between two stalls bit
yeah.
they did, which it was so funny. It was so funny. But
And Phil Collins' daughter Lily actually sent him out a congrats.
yeah,
So that was
yeah,
nice.
which was great. Totally great. First NHL player in history to reach 1,000 regular season games without any postseason
That
appearances,
kind of
though.
sucks.
Yeah, yeah, but I've always had a soft spot for Jeff Skinner, so
Yeah,
I'm
I
happy
never had
for him.
anything against him when he was with Carolina. He was the only guy to watch for a while.
Exactly, exactly. And he had that infamous axle, like figure skating axle in the
Yes.
middle of the game. So, I will always love him for that as well. But, unfortunately, Matthias Samuelsson is still on IR,
Yeah, he would love
so
to
we
play in
won't.
this game. You know that.
I know, would really like to see him, but as far as, like, top guys on that team, that top line is really, really
It's
good.
really
The
good and it's big and they
Yeah.
crashed the net. And I'm going to continue to talk about teams that crash the net. So that's something you have to watch out for.
Right. So, that's, JJ Peterka,
Yeah.
Thompson, and Tuck, and if you look at that game against the Caps, that line got 9 points in
Yeah.
that game.
Yeah. They could be potent. I mean, there's no question about it. I mean, they're really good. Uh, we all know that Peyton Krebs is a guy that the Flyers definitely covet. I don't know if they'll ever get him in a trade now that they traded Middlestat. So I think that dream is dead. Uh, I'm a big Benson fan, as you know. I mean, the fact that he's
Yeah.
playing as a rookie on the second line, that's tremendous. So that's a tricky line. Benson, Cousins, and Quinn is a very hard line to deal with because they're so smart and fast.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if that's partially why Tortorella is putting, Scott Lawton on that second line in terms of getting that matchup, but
Maybe, but I
I
mean,
don't know.
Cousins, you're talking about Cousins being like 6'2", 210 pounds of muscle. Now you're going to have to beat him for faceoffs. That's going to be hard.
I don't know. I don't know.
I know
It's,
you're trying to think like sorts, and I appreciate that you're even giving it the effort.
I do my best. I do my best. But yeah, like the Sabres are like also really interesting in that most of their stats hover exactly where they are in the standings. Like some teams have like one thing they're really good at, even
Yeah.
if they're not a good team. Sabres are not generally like that. They are, in the number 20-ish spot in the league in most stats across the board. And that's kind of where they are in the standings.
Yeah, they're weird that way, but they still have a good power play. You don't want to ignore
Yeah.
Rasmus Dahlin and what that power play can do. I mean, Dahlin even you don't want to ignore. Like the biggest worry here are from the Flyers standpoint is the big guys crashing the net and them being able to contain their big blue liners. They all have speed, they all have offensive ability. So that those are tough matchups. And the forwards that they match up against them are going to be a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. One interesting stat, though, is that since February 1st, the Sabres have the worst face-off percentage in the NHL,
Okay.
which so that bodes well
That
for the
bodes well for the
Flyers.
Flyers. They should win that.
Yeah, and it leads me to believe that A, they should be able to get something going on the power play because if they can win those face-offs, those initial face-offs,
Well, that's a
they can.
team thing. It doesn't mean they could beat Tage Thompson for faceoffs. You know what I
No,
mean? That's if they throw out Thompson every time, it doesn't
fair,
mean they're going to lose 40,
fair.
60% of the time.
Yeah, I just think you have to look for some silver
You do.
linings here
No, and
with that.
I think there is one, but I think it might be more 5 on 5 against those other
Right,
lines than it is gonna be
sure.
against, their top line.
Yeah, with set plays though, I the Flyers should be able to if they get a
Yes.
good face off in the offensive zone, they should be able to execute set plays.
Yeah. Yeah, I think on a few of their other lines, they should be able to.
Yeah, I just think obviously it goes without saying that all of these games are must win. So we look to see, what the Flyers can do up in Buffalo and just really finish out strong. They also have to do the same thing against Columbus. And we will talk about the sad tale of the Columbus Blue Jackets coming up next.
Passion, drive, and patience, what brings home the winning trophy, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts, for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need and the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply, eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers.
So the Columbus Blue Jackets, they are a conundrum because I think that you look at all of the injury woes that they have had, and it's been just terrible, terrible luck this season. And now they're dealing with Boone Jenner not being there for a horrible tragedy in his family, and sending all of my
Yeah.
love out to him and his wife in this situation. But um, in the meantime, Patrick Laine is out for the season. I
Yeah.
saw he was like
Crazy.
selling his condo in Columbus.
Oh, he is. He's getting
Uh,
rid of it. He's dumping it.
getting yeah. So there's that. Adam Fantilli, who started out so strong this season, out for the season. Kent Johnson is on IR. Elvis Merzlikins has been day to day. I'm not sure if we're
Yeah, I
going to
haven't
see him
heard
or
why.
not. So Adam Boquist has been out. Just Chinnikov has been out. Like it's just they're decimated, and they have been for a significant part of this season. That being said, they've managed to get some significant wins from time to time, including winning over the Avalanche on Monday. They won over the Pens in a shootout prior to that. And so they manage to figure things out sometimes. And that's what's like makes me nervous about them.
And they played the Flyers well last time, right?
They did. The
Yeah,
the Blue Jackets won the game on
that's what I
January
thought.
4th in a shootout, 3-2.
Right. So you always have to worry about Johnny Gaudreau, right? He's always going to get a point. Um,
Mhm.
it's interesting that they brought up Trey Wolanski, and he's got a big shot. I think he scored in that game, actually.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, we see him a lot when we see the Phantoms play the
Yeah,
Cleveland Monsters, and he is always a standout in those games.
yeah.
He always
He's just
has
never put it all
multiple points.
together, but he has a big shot. So you have to
Yeah,
watch and sort of respect that. This is a winnable game. I don't love the Blue Jackets goaltending. I would
right.
assume that you'll see Fedotov in this game. So we'll see how that sort of works out. Yeah, I mean, you just got to play your game. You can't, again, I keep hearing the narrative, well, the Flyers play down to their competition. And I don't think that's what their problem is. I
And I
think
don't think they've done that this season.
I don't believe they've done that at all. And I sort of bristle against that. What I think has happened is teams now are just trying to knock them out, and they're giving their true best efforts before the season ends. And I think that's what you're seeing. And if the Flyers don't have their best effort, even against some of these other teams, that's why they're losing.
Right. I think that's, been a huge, huge part of it. And again, as I mentioned a little bit in the Sabres preview, I like to pull recent stats,
Right.
to look at team comparisons. So it's like since February 1st, how are these teams doing? First off, Flyers penalty kill is 17th in the league since February 1st,
Yeah, we
which
know it's
you can
dipped a
see.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah, so you look at it and it's still 4th overall for the season, but in recent days, we know how, far it's dipped. Now, Columbus, it's worse than the Flyers. So if you can imagine that. I think that
Can't be worse on the
uh,
power play, Rachel.
no, well, no, because the Flyers are the worst, but
Right.
Columbus has the third worst power
There you
play in the
go.
league
I knew
since
you'd get close. I knew
February
you'd get close.
1st. Yeah, yeah. And, I think, man, it's just so like this is a game that if the Flyers don't win, like there's got to be some sort of reckoning
Right.
around it. Right? Now I understand it's a back to back, but that shouldn't matter
Doesn't
in
matter.
this case.
These are all do or die games. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah, Tarasov played in net versus the Avs, but, I don't know what's gonna happen there again because we don't know
Yeah.
exactly what's
Because
going on with
Merzlikins could come
Merzlikins.
back.
Right.
We don't know.
We don't know,
You figure for the
but it
home
is
game, if he was gonna come back, they probably use him for the home game.
yeah, I would think so. One of the other things, that I wanna talk about because, again, we were really high on David Jiricek. As far as the draft, we had him as our specific choice in that draft.
Yep.
Of course, that the Flyers did not take. Like, what do you think happened with him? And is it a Columbus thing or is it a him thing?
I think it's more Columbus than him because, again, Columbus has, um, veteran hockey people running it, and he's a kid. So I feel like, yes, he's going to do some things that are maybe head scratching. But like when he made it a point that he had bought a place in Columbus and then was spending no time in it because they sent him right to the Monsters, like that's something that really feels like he got blindsided by. And that shouldn't have happened. They should have been upfront with him and said this could happen. And even if you're getting this place, understand that NHL is like it all needs to be spelled out. I don't think everybody understands that when someone from overseas comes over, that they get what all these pitfalls can be in the NHL, especially for players that could go up and down, right? So I think there's that.
Yep.
That definitely bothered him. Then I think it was like 2 weeks ago, he was in between. They sent him down, then they tried to recall him, and they didn't know where he was. And we know about that. That happened on the Flyers.
Yep.
So that's a frustrating thing too, when you're kind of like in between two places and then you're playing for nobody. So I just think this is like a bad season of those kinds of things that could be corrected next year just by saying, "All right, you've made the team. Let's see what you can do." And they can't do any worse with him. So they have to have him make the team because he was playing well, I thought, but fine. You have a new coach. He's being picky, whatever.
Yeah. And, there's going to be some turnover off
Oh
season,
yeah.
up and down the organization, I'm willing to bet. So
Yeah.
we'll see if that affects Yurchek's season next year
There's going to be
you know,
opportunity. There's going to be a few defensemen that probably go.
yeah, yeah, just please nobody get hurt. That's all that's all I can hope for. But yeah, it is an interesting time for us Flyers fans here and here's hoping they win both of these games that we just talked about. That'll do it for today's show. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So if you've got mailbag questions or draft eligible prospects you want us to look into, you can send them in via Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOOLOGY.
Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and it's also available on the Amazon Fire TV app in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus national shows covering every league, like Locked On NHL. Find Locked On Sports Today available on the free Fire TV channels app. Have a great day, everyone.